House resignations in the wake of the siege at the Capitol. Even with just 13 days left in this administration, there are increasing calls for Donald Trump to be removed from office immediately, either by the cabinet through the 25th Amendment or new articles of impeachment. Tonight, in something of a shocker, the Wall Street Journal editorial board, which has forgiven all kinds of other Trump behavior, called on him to step down. Quote, if Mr. Trump wants to avoid a second impeachment, his best path would be to take personal responsibility and resign. Over 200 lawmakers in Congress have now called for or signed on to calls for the president's removal from office. Democratic leaders are pushing hard for him to be ousted. They want the vice president to invoke the 25th Amendment, which would allow him and the cabinet to strip power from the president.
If the vice president and cabinet do not act, the Congress may be prepared to move forward with impeachment. That is the overwhelming sentiment of my caucus.
By inciting sedition, as he did yesterday, he must be removed from office. While it's only 13 days left, any day can be a horror show for America.
Speaker Pelosi and I tried to call the vice president this morning to tell him to do this. They kept us on hold for 25 minutes and then said the vice president wouldn't come on the phone.
Congressman Hakeem Jeffries of New York, chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, who's standing by to join us in a moment, posted this, and we quote, Donald Trump should be impeached, convicted, and removed from office immediately. House Judiciary Chair Jerry Nadler, who of course presided over the first Trump impeachment, today called for a second. Meanwhile, the New York Times reports, not shockingly, that Mike Pence is against invoking the 25th Amendment. New reporting from CNBC says Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Treasury Secretary Stevie Mnuchin discussed the 25th Amendment within their own agencies as the Capitol was under Wednesday. Trump's former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly came out today, said it's time to consider removal from office.
I think the cabinet should meet and discuss this, because the behavior yesterday and the weeks and months before that has just been outrageous from the president.
If you were in the cabinet right now, would you vote to remove him from office?
Yes, I would.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois today became the first Republican on the Hill to back Trump's removal, saying, quote, it is with a heavy heart that I'm calling for the sake of our democracy that the 25th Amendment be invoked. Amid all that, there are questions being raised about whether Trump could face potential legal charges stemming from his comments ahead of and inciting the riot. Today, a federal prosecutor investigating the attack responded to that, saying, quote, we're looking at all actors here, anyone who had a role and where the evidence fits a crime. New York Times writes that in recent days, potential prosecutions have been on Trump's mind, that he's become more vocal about the idea of pardoning himself in addition to his kids. President-elect Biden has strong words today for those who took over the Capitol. He minced no words about those responsible for it.
Yesterday, in my view, one of the darkest days in the history of our nation. What we witnessed yesterday, dissent. It was not disorder. It was not protest. It was chaos. They weren't protesters. Don't dare call them protesters. They were a riotous mob, insurrectionists, domestic terrorists.
This is all unfolding, of course.